Okay, so I watched the whole of Avatar The Last Airbender Netflix live action, and I have notes. I have a lot of notes. So yeah, just a bit of information, I guess, just background story of me, I guess, is that I am a huge Avatar The Last Airbender fan, and I watch the series at least once a year since I was like 14, so that must be over 12 times by now, because it's at least once a year, sometimes twice, sometimes more or less, always at least once a year. So that's about 12 to 13 to 14 times by now. So yeah, I do know my Avatar The Last Airbender facts somehow. But again, I am no way informed in like First Nation people and their culture, or Asian people and their culture, except for my 1 year of exchange in Japan, but like that's literally it. So I have nothing to say about those, so go and listen to someone who actually knows what they're talking about. But I do have a drama and production degree, so I guess that gives me some qualifications when it comes to the drama aspect and the production aspect, I guess. And also I'm just a fan, so I guess that gives me some insight as well. So I've just written out notes. It's always like one episode, and then on the last, like after the episodes, I have some opinions about how I would change the series to make it better, and also how I would do the second season if the series is to get a second, to not make it suck as much as the first season. So yeah, so spoiler warning, obviously it's going to include a lot of spoilers from the series, so why are you even watching this video if you don't like spoilers? I don't know, but it's going to include a lot of spoilers. And also, if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm not a huge fan of the series. I thought there were some good things. I don't think the whole series sucks as it is, but there's a lot more things that I don't like. So yeah, let's get started, I guess. So, episode 1. Starting off, it's a lot of fighting. So for the first episode, it starts with this weird Fire Kingdom scene that's not in the original cartoon series, which I thought was a bit unnecessary. I guess it does give you kinda background to those people who haven't seen the animated series, but I still thought it was a bit unnecessary. I'm not too mad about it, but it's a bit unnecessary, and why include unnecessary things? I don't know. But yeah, I did like how it starts with the airbenders, but what I thought could have done better is you have the start with the airbenders, right? And then runs away, goes into an iceberg, and then I think we could have stopped it there, because now we see the airbenders fighting against the firebenders who come in and attack them. And the thing is, like, we don't really know these characters yet that much. Like, we've got a little bit of kinda getting to know them in the previous scenes, but it's not much at all. So when the firebenders just come and destroy the whole of Air Nation, we aren't that emotionally interested yet. So it just doesn't really matter that much. So, like, it's just a lot of fighting, and we don't really care about those people that much yet. So I think you could just let it there, like kind of have the beginning with the airbenders, have Aang run away, and then have like the beginning kind of exposition and like the theme music and stuff like that, and then start at the waterbending at the southern water tribe. And then after, when they do go to the Earth Temple later in the series, then we've already gotten to know Aang a bit more, and we know Katara and Sokka, and then we also get like the kind of emotional whiplash of like Aang figuring out that the whole of Air Nation was destroyed, and we don't know it yet because we haven't seen the Firebenders attack the Air Nomad, so we figure it out at the same time as Aang, and it would just give you that much more of like an emotion whiplash, I guess. Like you would be much more emotionally invested. So I do think that would have been a better choice. But again, I'm not like too mad about it. I'm kind of disappointed, but like I'm not too mad. And then again, when it comes to Aang, like at the beginning when he's at the air temple, I'm like, okay, like people have been saying online, like he's flying, like he's not, he's just like kind of jumping and, you know, gliding, I guess. But when he's at the wolf crow, it does look like he's just flying about without his glider, and I hate that. I hate that so much. Just remove it, please. Especially because later on in the series, Aang does lose his glider, and it's such, again, an emotional scene because he's been so dependent on that. So if he can't just like fly about without his glider, that kind of removes the emotional attachment to it a bit. I mean, obviously it's still like the last thing he has remaining, Air Nomad background, but like still, just no. But then one thing that I do like is the design of the characters, especially Aang, because so one thing that I do like is Aang's tattoos, because when you get like, at first I was like, oh, they look very plasticky, but then when you get this first kind of close up of Aang and you have the tattoos that have like spirals and stuff, which I really like. They're really intricate designs, but they still look like the tattoos, like the blue tattoos from the cartoon, but they're like really intricate, and I love it. I love it. I love it. So Aang's tattoos get an okay from me. Those were great. But then again, another character design that I absolutely hate is Zuko's car. Like what is going on with that? It just looks like a bruise. Like just please fix Zuko's car. Please fix Zuko's car. Like it just looks like a bruise. Like what is going on with there? But yeah. Another thing that I really liked about the first episode is when we get the beginning speech that we learn to know from the cartoon, and that's spoken by the grandmother, by Katara's and Zuko. Katara's and Sokka's grandmother. So we get that beginning speech that we've learned to know from the series, and I think that's a really nice moment, and I think it's wonderful. But then also for some reason I feel like the grandmother looks kind of fake. Like she looks like she's animated. I don't know why, but that just bothered me. So like, what is going on with her face? Why does she look fake? But yeah. Another thing is that I do really like the costumes of the series. I've seen a lot of people hate on them online, but I do really like them. I think they're wonderful. They're like accurate to the cartoon, but we still get that like when you look at the material, Aang's costume seems to be like his cape is felt, and his costume seems to be cotton. Like it looks real, you know. It because people have been complaining that it looks like cosplay, but I don't think so, because quite often what you get with cosplay costumes is that they look very plasticky and fake in that sense. But these costumes, they're accurate to the cartoon, but they do also look like Aang's costumes looks like felt and cotton, and Katara's and Sokka's costume do look like leather. They do look like leather. But one thing that I did not like the costumes, and this is specifically for the winter costumes of the waterbenders, is that they look really flimsy. Like they just don't look warm at all. And I kind of get it, like if they're filming it in a kind of indoor place with a lot of lights and it's really hot. Like I'm never one for like actor abuse, so like I get it if that's the reason. But still, you could have at least given them gloves. Like they're supposed to be living in freaking South Pole, and none of them are wearing gloves. Like their fingers would just like freeze off. And if it's a thing like, oh, they can't bend with gloves on, like I think that would have been kind of a fun thing to have, that they all like, you know when it's getting serious when they take their gloves off. So I think that would have been kind of fun. Or even just have a culture of them like putting their hands inside sleeves, to keep them warm. Like I think that could have been like a fun detail too. Like I don't know why it bothers me so much, but why don't they have gloves? And also, their necks and heads are completely free. Like, why is nobody wearing hoods? Why is nobody covering their necks? Like, it's such a minor detail that I would have loved to see, and it just really annoys me. As someone who, like, I know that Finland is not like the coldest country that's out there, but it does get really cold in here during the winter. So I don't know. I think it's just a thing that when you grow up in like a colder country, you just kind of spot immediately, and it just really annoyed me. Like, just give them clothes. Fine if you don't want to give them like huge winter jackets and they're gonna be like boiling, but like just give them clothes. Like, that's the least you could have done. And then I kind of wish we could have got more details on like Katara's little hair beads. Like, when we've got such intricate details on like Aang's tattoo, I would have loved from Katara's hair beads have some carvings on them, like her necklace does. Just some waterbending carvings, because that's such a big part of her character, and I would have loved to see some little more detail on that. But like, other than that, I do think the costumes look really nice, and there is a lot of details on like the buttons and other parts of the costume. So yeah, the costumes altogether I like them. It's just those winter costumes that I do really not approve of. But yeah, I also really miss Appa and how he's introduced to the series, because it was really nice in the first episode when they have those like Sokka's guessing like, what did the little dude say, like yip yip yop, like yop yop hey hey, and then he remembers yip yip and Appa just starts flying. Like, I just missed the yip yip. They could have just included that. Also, I love the music. I love that they used music from the original series. I love that so much. The music gets a plus from me. It's great. But then again, when we get to the negatives that I did hate, is what happened to Katara. Like, the actress is so pretty. She's so pretty. Her face is perfect. But she doesn't emote very well. She has two emotions. It's like happy and sad. And she just reminds me of that episode where they go and see a play that's based on them, and Katara is just constantly crying, being like, oh, someone's hope. The actress just reminds me of that, and like, I'm like, just have more emotions than happy and sad. Just learn to emote a bit well. But then the writers don't help at all. Like, the writers just did Katara so dirty. It's the combination of the actress and the writers that just makes her look like the character from the play, and it's awful. Because Katara is really like an angry character. She's got a lot of hate and anger, and the whole point of the series, or like her personality, is also that she will do everything in her power to learn waterbending. So, which is why it's so terrible when she gets the waterbending scroll from her grandma, and it just doesn't have much to do at all. Like, just remove the waterbending scroll at that point. Like, it kind of makes the granny look like not so nice person, but which they do great at this series. They make all the characters seem so unlikable. So just remove the waterbending skull at that point if Katara's not gonna steal it, because when she steals it, it kinda gives us the insight to her that she will literally do everything in her power to learn waterbending. She doesn't really care about the ethics of it. Like, she will not give this up. And I think it's part of like the cultural erasure of the waterbenders at that point, that kinda perhaps has to do with First Nation people and their cultural erasure, and how important it is to Katara to like continue that tradition and keep hold of her heritage, which is why learning waterbending is so important to her. And we just completely lose that in the series with the bending scroll and with all the other things too. Like, how easily she just learns waterbending, and from these characters that not even waterbenders. And it's such a shame, and it's just bad. So yeah, that's my notes on episode 1. And then we go to episode 2. And again, I love the underdress of the waterbender costumes. Like, I didn't like the winter clothes, but they kinda under tunics and stuff they have underneath, I love them. They're so intricate and detailed and just so pretty. I love them. I also love Kyoshi fighting in it. And the thing is, like, this didn't happen in the cartoon, but in the series they kind of just destroy Aang's personality, where he's like, oh, I have to learn airbending. Like, I want to do the monks proud because they died for me, and I think that was quite a smart choice to move the plot faster, because in the series we do get a lot of just random things that they just do because Anne just wants to do them and he's like a little kid, which is really nice in the series. But if we assume that we don't have as much time in the live action series, it was a really smart choice to kinda give Aang that personality to move the plot along, which is why I think the second episode, it's my favorite episode, and I think it's actually like the only good episode in the series. So it makes sense that they would go to Kyoshi Island for Anne to learn about being Avatar and stuff, and I think it makes sense. So I can kind of forgive them destroying Anne characters for that, like to move the plot. I didn't necessarily like it, but I understand it, and I thought it was a very smart choice. That's until episode 3, but up until this, I thought it was a very smart choice. And that's why I don't really have many notes from it. So that's why I also thought it was so great of Avatar contacting Kyoshi. Because at this point, I thought what they were gonna do is Avatars contact Kyoshi. We get the establishment that Avan can contact previous avatars. We get to understand what is Avatar state. We get to see Spirit World, and that's how we don't have to see Roku's temple. We don't have to see the episode with Heibai. We can skip a lot of the Spirit World and kind of Avatar stuff, right? That's what I thought they were going to do. So at this point, I thought it was great, and I thought it was amazing, and I loved seeing Kyoshi fight. And also, we can skip the episode where they have the Avatar Day, and I'm being like boiled alive. If you haven't seen the cartoons, you don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I thought they were gonna be able to skip a lot of stuff with like kind of previous avatars and Spirit World and stuff like that, with that so simple change, and I thought that was so great. I also loved Suki's and Sokka's little romance. I thought episode 2 was great. I don't really have that many notes about it because I thought it was great. And I wish they would have kept that throughout the whole series. One thing that I also thought worked really well in the second episode is that they didn't try to mush 10 plotlines together, but they focused on Kyoshi Island and avatars, and they just focused on one plotline at a time, and I thought that worked great, and I loved episode 2. It's my favorite episode of the whole series, and unfortunately it's just downhill from here. So then we go to episode 3. So what we got with Katara's waterbending is such a shame, because first of all, they just completely remove Katara's obsession with waterbending and how jealous and frustrated she gets when Aang picks up waterbending faster than she does. And then we don't get that whole thing that comes later in the series about talent versus practice, when Katara surpasses Aang because she just has that drive and she just has that obsession that Aang just doesn't have. Aang just has natural talent and nothing else. And we completely destroyed the storyline with Aang just like helping Katara to practice, and Katara being like, oh, it's so great and everything's so easy. Like, please no, why did you do Katara so dirty? And then we get my Cabbage Man, which I hated, because the only thing you had to do for the whole series, like, okay, include him, but all he had to say is my cabbages. That was kind of the joke. And then when you get him talking and actually interacting with the characters, it loses the funny part, because the funny part is that the characters don't know that there is this random Cabbage Man that they just keep abusing. But having him interact with the characters just destroys that joke. And that's also a thing they do really well in this series, is that they destroy every single joke there is. They just make the whole series so serious. And it's such a shame. And again, this is where it starts to go downhill so bad, because they start combining just plots. They take like 4 or 5 episodes of the original cartoon series and just mush it together and destroy all the characters, destroy all the plotlines, just destroy the whole thing, make all the characters really unlikable. Doesn't work. It's just too much. So in episode 3, we got Sai and Tio with like the flying wheelchair, and what we lose is Aang's anger when they're like appropriating air nomad culture and destroying his traditions And then after that, when he learns to understand and he becomes hopeful that in fact they're not actually appropriating the culture, but they're in fact continuing their nomad culture, how he has anger turns to hope, and we completely lose that by making them earth nature, by making them live in Omashu. We completely lose that, and it just makes no sense. Like, it makes no sense. Ugh, it's so annoying. And also, this is way too early because we haven't established Sokka's smartness and his knack for inventions and seeing things differently than other people do. So it's just way too early. And again, we don't see that. This series loves to tell us things instead of show us things. And that's, again, we don't see actually Sokka being this genius inventor, but we hear him be this genius inventor, and it just doesn't hit similarly. And when they keep combining plots, it's just action, 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 action. We don't get any character development, and it's just too much. It's just too much. And then when we get introduced to Azula and Ty Lee and May this early in the series, Ty Lee and May, they don't do anything. They're literally unnecessary. They don't do anything. They just stand there. Why even introduce the characters if they don't do anything? And also, we don't see Azula abusing Ty Lee when she goes and wants her on her team. We don't see her almost kill her. We don't see any of the abuse, so we don't have the basis when later in the series Ty Lee changes sides and goes against Azula. We don't get that base for that. They just stand there. Like, why even introduce the characters at this point? It makes no sense. And again, with combining plots, we get Jet. And when we kind of have only Katara interact with Jet, we again lose Sokka and his people skills. And he's figuring out that Jet's not actually a very great character. When we combine the plots, it just seems like Sokka's just being he's just not liking Jet just because he doesn't like him. Like, Sokka doesn't know Jet because he hasn't spent any time with it. It's different in the series when Sokka actually first likes him and then he figures out that he's not a good character. And then we also get this, like, who's actually the bad guys here? Like, are all Fire Nation people bad guys just because they're Fire Nation? And we don't get the absurdity of war. And it just loses so much. And then also, why include Omashu at all if you're not gonna include Bumi? Like, the whole first episode of Omashu, we don't see at all of Bumi. Like, he's just not there. And also, why include Azula if she's just gonna be this random character in the background? Like, she doesn't need to be included at this point. We don't need to know there exists an Azula. She's literally so unnecessary. Just don't. And then we get to episode 4, where we do get to see Bumi, but his character is completely destroyed. He's made so unlikable. It's not really moving the plot at all. Like, it skips the whole point of Omashu and unlearning to, like, see things from different angles and see that everything's not clearly so black and white and meet his old friend. Like, it just makes Bumi an asshole. The tests he does make no sense. He's become such an unlikable character. It makes no sense. Why even include Omashu at this point? We've literally spent 2 episodes on this plotline that doesn't make any sense. Why even include it? It's so frustrating. You could have had one plotline with just Jet in the previous episode. With just Jet. And this episode would have been like with just Scientio or just Omashu. And actually have Bumi be like in the original cartoons where he is crazy but he's still a likable character and this powerful earthbending master that Aang wants to teach him, but like wants Bumi to teach him, but Bumi's like, no, you need someone else. So yeah, the whole thing makes no sense. And like, why why destroy Aang characters if you're not actually going to move the plot along? If you're going to include things that don't move the plot. Like, it makes no sense. Same with the secret tunnel. It doesn't move the plot at all. It just doesn't make sense without Aang. And also, it gives this weird incest vibe with Sokka and Katara that we are not vibing with. Like, it just makes no sense. Like, the show skips so many things, but it just doesn't choose them properly. Like, you have to include Chet, right? Because later in the series, you get Ba Sing Se, and you get the mind control to Chet. And it's an important message that, like, not everyone in the Fire Nation is bad, not everyone who fights against Fire Nation is good. So you have to include Chet. So, okay, have the third episode just be about just Chet, because you have to include that. But Secret Tunnel, it doesn't really move plot along, you don't have to include that. Again, Omashu, like we do see Bumi a lot in the other episodes, and I do see why you would want to include that. So, okay, like, maybe we do include Omashu. But like, the Secret Tunnel doesn't make any sense. And again, say Antio and the flying wheelchairs and the flying machines, we can have them later in the series. We can have them in season 2. It doesn't need to be right now, but I do think you have to include them, but not right now. Same with Azula. You don't have to include them in the first season, but those are things that you do have to include. And then again, what is with the Katara's obsession of being treated like a little girl when she's literally supposed to be Sokka's mother character? She's supposed to be taking care of Sokka. There's a whole thing about how Sokka talks to Toph later in the series, about how he can't remember his mother. He only thinks of Katara when he thinks of Mata. And that destroys, again, Katara's character completely. They just did Katara so dirty. It's so annoying. Why even have Katara at this point? Like, literally. And then also, why even have Iroh kidnapped if you're not going to include the, like, the hot spring and Iroh just being like this senile old man and the sandal, and he he playing this senile old man, and then turning around and actually being this powerful wise bender. Like, that whole contrast of the character, like, it's just not included at all. So yeah, the whole episode 3 and episode 4 is awful. The only thing that I did like is, again, the costumes, the earthbending costumes. They are so nice, so detailed. I don't know who's costume designing in this series, but like, I love them. I don't get why people hate the costumes. And I did also like a lot of the flashbacks we get with Iroh and Zuko, and kind of establishing their relationship, and I really like that. But like, everything else in these 2 episodes, awful bullshit, makes the characters seem really unlikable. Okay, and then we get to episode 5. And again, why destroy characters to move plot if you're not gonna move the plot? What I thought they were gonna do after the Kyoshi episode is just ignore all the spiritual stuff and ignore all the Avatar stuff. But no. Like, you don't need that stuff anymore. It doesn't move the plot. You already established them. Why have a whole episode with like Heibai and Avatar Roku's temple and just, again, skip all the messaging in those episodes? And again, like, it's combining the ice dodging episode with Spirit World, with Roku's temple, and the fact that you had the ice dodging episode in this, and Sokka's dad being a complete asshole. Again, it makes Sokka's dad so unlikable. All this series does is destroy the characters and make them so unlikable. It's so annoying. It doesn't give this bonding moment with Katara and Sokka and their, again, tradition and their culture. No, it just destroys it and makes Sokka's dad look like an asshole. I hate it so much. And then again, Roku's temple too early, makes no sense, could just completely skipped, because we already got established that Aang can connect his past lives, and we already established all of this. This whole episode is unnecessary. Why destroy characters if you're not gonna move the plot? Just, they could have included the proper ice dodging episode, the proper episode where Katara and Sokka get to know their culture. We have the tracker, we have Katara and Sokka connecting with their episode, we have Aang feeling left out, and we have all of those storylines. You could have just had that. Focus on that episode, but no, you have to include a million other things that don't make sense and just destroy everything. The only thing I did like about this is the Fire Lord kind of putting Zuko and Azula against each other, because that makes sense in his character. But again, we don't need to see this now. We could have left it to later seasons. It doesn't make sense to include Fire Lord and Azula right now. Like, the first season is about Aang and Sokka and Katara and Zuko and Iroh and those characters and getting to know them. Also, what is wrong with May's costume and hair? It just doesn't give goth, depressed person at all. Like, it's not the quality of the costume, it's just that it doesn't fit the character. Same with the hair. Like, I've seen people bully these characters, or like the actors online, and I don't agree with that. I think they're very beautiful people. I don't hate their faces. The only thing I hate is May's costume. Like, Tylee's costume is so her, it's so pink and fluffy, and it's perfect. And then there's Mai's costume. Like, it just doesn't give me goth at all. Because Mai's supposed to be this kind of depressed, cynical goth character. It just doesn't give that at all. I can't exactly say what's wrong with it, but I just don't like it. It just doesn't give Mai at all. And then also, a thing I did like about this episode is the animation. When we go to Spirit World and we have the face stealer, the whole plotline with that doesn't make any sense. Like, why even include that if you're not going to adhere to the rules, if you're not going to have the fact that you can't show any emotion? But like, why include Spirit World even at all? Because we kind of got it on the Kyoshi episode, but anyway, it doesn't make sense. But I did like the animation, how it makes kind of him look like a claymation character, and makes sense because he like steals other people's faces, and he is kind of this like clay character that changes shape according to the people that he steals. So it makes sense for him to look like a claymation character. So I like the animation, but I do not like the storyline at all. So yeah, for episode 5, just do the ice dodging episode. Just do that. Skip everything else. And then we go to episode 6, which again, Roku's temple makes no sense without Sokka and Katara. Doesn't move the plot again. Destroys the message behind Heibai and the whole nature spirit stuff. It just doesn't make no sense. Again, terrible. Again, then it's turning this funny frog episode where Anne tries to find a cure to Katara. So that combines that episode with Roku's temple and Spirit World. And again, it destroys all of the messages behind the episodes. And also, that's kind of like a funny episode we get with finding the cures and, you know, Mai's food, like the little cat and its food, and like chasing frogs and getting to know Zuko a bit better. It just turns that funny frogs episode so serious. And again, the whole flashback with Zuko and the war consul makes Zuko look really stupid. Because the whole point was that Zuko was right. That he was right to question his dad, and his things made no sense, which is why it's so painful when he gets punished for it, because he was right. But the whole flashback makes Zuko seem really dumb. So I didn't hate the flashback as a flashback. I just wish they would have done that differently and actually made Zuko be wise and right as he was, but you know. And then I do like Sao wanting to like write everything down, you know. Sao the mighty, Sao the conqueror. It fits his character, and I think it's kind of a fun twist. So I do really like that tiny detail. And also, I did like the inclusion of the blue spirit, but like at that point, it's not moving the plot at all. Like, they could have just had the episode as it was originally, right, with the frogs and stuff, and have kind of like a fun episode, because everything's so serious. I would have actually liked that, and then include the blue spirit and Zuko going against Sao and all of that stuff, and have like Zuko's flashbacks and whatever. Like, it would have been a great episode again if they would have just focused on that one storyline. And then again, Zuko's fight against his father is awful, because what he was supposed to do was just not fight against his dad. That was the whole thing. He doesn't fight against his dad, and his dad punishes him for not fighting. That was the whole point. It destroyed it. Like, have this episode, have the frog episode, have Aang trying to save Zuko. No, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up names. Have Aang trying to heal Katara and Sokka and have that episode with Zuko and have Zuko's flashbacks, but actually do them properly. And one thing that I do really like about this episode, so which is like what they changed from the original cartoons, is that the 41st Division that Zuko saved being his crew. I did like that one. I did like that change. I think that's great. Good job on that one. But like, stop combining storylines, please. And then also leaving episodes on cliffhanger is cheap and destroys the story flow unnecessarily. And also, like, if you're just gonna publish all the episodes at the same time so you can binge watch them, it makes no sense. Stop that too. Like, it makes no sense. Have proper episodes with one episode being one storyline. So annoying. Okay, and then we get to episode 7. And again, Princess Yue, I liked her character. I liked her being a bender. It makes sense because she has the moon spirit in her. I liked that. I liked her being the spiritual leader of the community. But what is wrong with her hair and costume? Her hair looks so bad. Her makeup is so bad. Her costume is so weird. It looks like it gives kind of like French Rococo Victorian time silk. Like, it just makes no sense. Why have this like this First Nation princess who lives in an ice castle and have her costume be silk or polyester? I don't know what it is, but I like to believe that it's silk. Like, it makes no sense. They literally live in an ice city. Like, again, with the costumes not looking warm at all, it makes no sense. Like, okay, I get they have like a freaking tropical spring in the middle of the city, but they still live in a nice city. Like, I don't know what's wrong with like her costume is so awful. And again, why is nobody wearing gloves, hats, hoods, anything? And what I thought would have been really great if they'd change the makeup so that you have a lot of blush cheeks and red noses. Like, I just thought that would have been really cute, and also a nod to the fact that it is cold in there. So I would have loved to see a lot of frostbitten cheeks, a lot of blushed noses, you know, kind of cold makeup. I would have loved for her to have like white eyelashes. Like, I don't know, like, it would have been so nice, kind of like her hair turned white, have like white eyelashes, white eyebrows, kind of look like there was like snow stuck on her eyelashes. Like, I would have loved that. That would have been such a cool detail. But no, her makeup is just a mess. Like, I don't like it. I like the character. I hate the makeup and costume. And then also US engagement destroys this kind of like Sokka's tragic love story. What I think they could have done is stop the engagement, right? Be like, oh, they were betrothed, but they stopped it. But not have you be like, oh, I was waiting for my dream boy, and you are my dream boy. But be like, I ended the engagement because I wanted to focus on my spiritual path. And then being like, I cannot be with you, Sokka, because as much as I love you, I need to focus on being the spiritual leader of my community, focus on my spiritual path. That would have been so nice. Like, you know, women power, not having anyone be like betrothed against their will, but still have that like kind of tragic love story. And then also have more base on when she decides to become the moon spirit, that was always going to happen. And I like the introduction of Kuruk, the avatar. I like that they are more leading more into the other avatars. But again, what is wrong with his costume? We literally see chest hair. What is wrong with the winter costumes? Why are they not warm at all? I get that he's supposed to be like a surf guy, like a beach guy, but like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. And also, I kind of liked that you see Sokka in the spirit world, but like, it's kind of cute, but again, not necessary. Why do you include not necessary things that do not move the plot if you're gonna destroy the character to move the plot? And then again, what is with Anne being to Katara like, yeah, don't fight? Maybe they're right, maybe you shouldn't fight, maybe girls shouldn't fight. Like, I get it's like, oh, he wants to protect his friend, but we lose that whole thing in the cartoon when Anne's like, oh, I'm not gonna train if you're not gonna train Katara either. Again, destroying Anne characters for like no reason. And then again, when we get the battle between Katara and the waterbending master, it's just not very epic at all. Like, first of all, it makes no sense how they like try to hit each other. Like, they're literally benders. Why would they try to hit each other? The only thing I liked about it was like the referral to the cartoon when you have like Kazar doing the ice blades and then it like almost hits Rock and you have like a slow motion him turning and the blade going past him. I really liked that part. That was the only part about the fight that I liked. And then also, why haven't we seen any Momo and Appa during this whole series? Like, we don't get to see their personalities at all. We don't get to see them at all. Like, is that like a budget thing? Is like too expensive to include them? Like, I don't understand it, but we don't see them at all, and I hate that. And then finally, we get to the last episode. So, again, why just not include the battle in the cartoon? Why just not follow the final battle we have in the cartoon? It's great, just follow it. And like leave balloons for later, that way you don't have to include Sai and Theo in this season. You can leave them later, you can leave the balloons for later, you can actually have them live in the air temple. Just leave out that for later, just follow the cartoon. I do like the women power movement, you know, where all of them go to this waterbending master and be like, include us, we want to help. I liked that. I liked that they changed it from the cartoon where the waterbending master is just like, oh, like, I used to like your grandma, so I guess I'm gonna train you. I did like the whole women power thing, because not only does it make the waterbending master seem more likable, which is like the opposite what they've been doing this whole series. They've just been destroying characters this whole series. So it makes the waterbending master seem more likable, and it kind of gives this women power movement that I liked. I liked that change. But then again, what is wrong with, like, what is going on with the ice moon and the spirits coming once a year or whatever? Like, just include this original plotline that they gave up their spirits to be together in the real world. Just, you don't need to make it more complicated, you know? And I hate kinda that Iroh just leaves when Aang changes into this monster. Like, I liked that the whole point of Iroh being like, oh, you have been touched by the spirit of the moon, like you can give it back, being like, these are people coming together from different backgrounds to save this spirit. But I'm like, not like too about it, because I do think it makes sense for Yu's character, especially in this. I liked what they did about Yu's character being like the spiritual leader and stuff, so it does kind of make sense for her to become the moon spirit and give herself up, which is why it would have made more sense for her to kind of be like, oh, I can't be with you, Sokka, because I'm the spiritual leader, or like, I broke up the engagement to be the spiritual leader. So I'm not like too mad about it. I'm a bit disappointed, but I'm not. But then so just ignore the whole thing with Zuko, and so have Iroh save Zuko and then just leave. They just leave. And then so being taken by the ocean spirit into the spirit world. That was the whole thing. Also, I don't get what's this serious obsession with burning people alive. Like, there's so many people burned alive. I don't get it. So yeah, I hate that Zhao needed to be taken to the spirit world. Again, I hated the part where Aang turns into the ocean spirit. I like the explanation that he turns into the ocean spirit. He gives himself up to the ocean spirit. I liked that part. I thought that was cool. But what I liked about the cartoon is when he turns into this monster, you have like this whole scene with just epic music playing, and then the waterbenders bowing at him. The waterbenders dropping their like weapons and bowing at him, and the firebenders like taking their arms up, and that's when the spirit decides to flush them out. That's how he knows who to kill, because the waterbenders just immediately bow. They immediately say, we respect you. And the firebenders are like, no, we're gonna fight. And that's how the spirit knows who's to kill. And we get this epic scene of like God destroying the firebenders and this epic music playing. But in this series, it's just people screaming and yelling, and just there's not enough bowing and epic music. It just kind of destroys. Also, I hate the fact that it's one night only. Like, why change that? It makes no sense. Also, I wanted Yu's body to be left. Like, she just disappeared. It doesn't hit as hard as if we actually have her body, her empty shell. Her body as it was supposed to be when she was born, because there is not a spirit in her body anymore. We needed to see Yu's body. We needed to see the funeral. We needed to see her empty shell. I hate that she just disappears just to the air. It just makes no sense. I hate it so much. And I still wanted to see Paku train Aang and Katara and see Katara stop being jealous of Aang when she goes past him, when she realizes that it doesn't matter that Aang has more natural talent, because she has that obsession and that drive to learn waterbending. And yeah, that's the whole series. So then I have some notes about the whole series. I mean, I've said a lot during this thing, but like, just kind of pulling everything together. So what I did really like was Sokka and Zuko's and Azula's characters, but I do think Azula was introduced too early. She didn't need to be in this season. It makes no sense. I did like Sokka's character, and I've heard that he lied about being indigenous. I don't know if that's true, but if that is true, I think it sucks a lot, and they should have said they shouldn't have given him the role. But I hope that's not true, because I do like his character a lot, and I do like the actor in the role. What I didn't like is them just smooshing everything together. First of all, they didn't need to include Damashu at all. Like, they could have just left it properly to season 2. And then they could have had one episode where they go to Amashu and they get to know Bumi, and then they have Azula come in, and they have Mai's little sister and little brother, and like them conquering Amashu, and Bumi being like, no, you need to know when to attack. Like, you could have kind of had that in one episode in season 2. Like, you just didn't need to include Amashu at all. Half of the things that they included in this. And yeah, so what I would do in season 2 to kind of fix this is, obviously, before you include anything, just think about, do I really need to include this? If we don't include this, do we get trouble later on in the series? So for example, you need to include Chet, because later in Ba Sing Se, you need him to show the brain manipulation of Ba Sing Se, and he's kind of like a big character later on in the series. So you need to include him. But for example, Hey Bye, it's just one of episode. You already established Spirit World, and even though the message is like, oh, like, nature renews, like, it's not that important, you could have easily skipped that. So I think before including anything, you just think about, like, feel like it's in trouble later for not including this. And then also, yeah, and just stop combining storylines. It's a mess. Choose one thing and focus on one thing. And then also fix Zuko's scar. It looks like a bruise. Just fix it, please. And then also give Katara's actor some acting lessons. And let her be angry. Let her show off those skills. Let Katara contain multitudes. And maybe in second season they could lean more on Katara now being this warrior. Her learning to bend, her believing in herself, and her becoming this mentor to Aang, and this mother character to Sokka and Toph, and her becoming like the meta character to the whole group, and becoming this strong leader, where she's more of a leader than Aang, even though Aang is supposed to be the leader of the group, he's literally the Avatar. But Aang being more of this childish character who, okay, he wants to learn bending, but he just doesn't have the drive to be the Avatar, And then I think they should, okay, they've already introduced Azula and Ty Lee and May, but I feel like they could, because already they've done a lot of flashbacks. I really just want them to include the scene with Ty Lee and Azula in the circus, where Ty Lee is living her best life, and then Azula just comes and burns everything down. I want them to include that. So if anyone in the series somehow miraculously sees this, do that. Stop combining storylines. Have Katara contain multitudes. Let her become this leader meta character that she is. Don't destroy Toph's character. Let her be like she's in the series. And also Toph, let her make jokes about being disabled, because that's so true. Like a lot of disabled people, and I'm disabled by the way, or chronically ill, whatever you want. We do make jokes about being disabled or chronically ill to make other people more comfortable with our disabilities or with our issues, but also to make ourselves more comfortable. So have Toph be blind, have her tell jokes about it, have her be the kind of character she is in the cartoons. You did so well with Azula's and Sokka's character, so I know you can do it. So don't destroy Toph. Have Katara grow to be this leader, and have Aang lean more on the fun side of his personality, the playful side of his personality, while still wanting to be the Avatar. And for God's sakes, stop combining storylines. But yeah. And the last words, I do like how they included the First Nation people in the series and Asian people. I don't know much about them, but I still love the seeing those actors get roles, and anyone who bullies those actors for their how they look, shame on you. I love Azula. I don't care that her face is a bit rounder than in the cartoons. It's a cartoon, obviously they're not gonna look exactly the same, and also she's supposed to be 14. I love her character, I love her actor. I thought they did such a great job with her. I just thought they should have left her to season 2. But I will not stand for Azula slander. I love Ty Lee. I hate what's going on with May, but not the actual actor, but the makeup, no, the hair and the costume. So change that. Make her like a goth. Make her a goth. Do that. Thank you. Yeah. Hire me to do the second season. No, I'm kidding. Although, like, I would love to. But yeah, I can see why the original series, because it's a mess. But I feel like it has potential, you know? It's not all bad, it has potential. I feel like literally the one thing they could have done to make the whole series so much better, the one thing, is to stop combining storylines. That the one change would have made the whole series so much better. But yeah, that's my uneducated and educated opinion on the Avatar The live action series. And if you actually watched this whole video, good for you. Let me know if you actually did watch this. Like, I literally just spoken to myself for an hour. So if you did watch this to the end, props for you, and I think you must be insane. Bye.